Hi guys, so we find ourselves today in the wilds of Lancashire because it's nearing Christmas, and at Newgate that means it's holly wreath time. We make about 4,000 or 5,000 holly wreaths and sell them to various different people from garden centres, supermarkets, and obviously to you guys too. So this Christmas we're going to do things a bit differently. We're going to have a wreath demonstration which we'll be showing you after you've seen where we get the holly from. So all our holly is sourced in Lancashire. It's all sustainably grown. We've been sort of taking holly off this farm, which is wild holly, so it's just been dropped by the birds years and years ago. We take off this was cut 4 years ago, and it's grown back, as you can see, perfect, ready to prune again. So as long as you don't hammer it back, it's all sustainable. This is then cut by hand, bundled, taken back to the nursery, where we're then going to cut it shorter to about 10 to 12, well about 10 inches, sorry. And then that's going to be mixed with some conifer and put on a moss base. So we're going to show you how to do that after. But currently, if you just see what we're doing here, to give you an idea. And it's very prickly. So we're cutting lengths of about sort of 4 to 5 foot long. This is then laid onto like baling twine, bundled, and taken back to the nursery. Holly doesn't last if you put it in, if you cut it too soon. So these are just for samples, for photographs, and then we'll start making the wreaths about the last week of November. That way they'll be fresh for Christmas. Okay guys, we'll see you back at the nursery. Right guys, so now we're back at the nursery, having been up in the wilds, got battered by the rain and wind. We've got the holly, we've come back. We've also got, just so you're aware, and you can get this from home very easily, conifer. So leylandii, thuya, anything, any hedge that you've got growing around and about you, or anything you can find in the park. Just want it cut into about sort of, well, ideally 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches. That's going to be mixed in with the holly and add like a backdrop to the foliage. You can get yellow conifer, blue conifer if you want to change the colours. We use the green. Now then, so you've got your holly. Now we need to cut the holly into smaller pieces. What we're looking for is something about 6 inches, okay? So about 15 centimetres in length. And we're going to use every piece of holly when we're cutting, okay? Ideally with a bit of a stem on the end if you're going to make your own holly wreath. This is what you've got to do. You're going to need some gloves that are of a good thickness. We use these that are coated with plastic. And they just stop the prickles coming through because you are going to get prickled. Okay, so this has been holly making at Newgate, wreath making at Newgate. It's been a tradition that's been in the family for quite a few years. My granddad and dad started it probably back in, I'd have said about late 50s, early 60s. They were veg growers then, and in the winter there wasn't a lot going on, so the holly wreath just gave them some money for Christmas. And basically, around these parts in Whitestake, there's quite a few nurseries that make the holly wreaths, and we do it differently to a lot of other people, where we actually wrap the holly on, where some people wire the holly and then stab it into the base. Okay, so this is the difference that we do. This is one that I made earlier, just literally made it, first one of the year. And you can see that, nice and tight, full, and ready for decorating. Okay, I'll show you about the base now because that's important. The bases that we use are moss-lined straw bases. So there's straw under here, and then you've got to wrap the moss on. These are all these things that you see in these videos are available to buy, and they'll be available online in the Make Your Own category on Newgate Direct. So these are your bases. They have a wire in them to give them a bit of extra stability so they don't rock about. So that is your 10-inch base. That's going to make a 12 to 14-inch wreath, and that is a 12-inch base, and that's going to make a 14 to 16-inch wreath. Okay, so today we're going to just start with the small one, and then we'll make a big one. So we're going to make a 10-inch holly wreath now. The next thing you need is a bobbin with string. Okay, so you'll be able to buy the string online in small balls. It's 3-ply green string, so you can't see it on the base, and it's strong enough to give everything a really good pull. Okay, so the first thing you do is attach the string to the base. That's very, very simple. You leave about 6 to 8 inches of string hanging over the base,
and you just wrap it round 2 or 3 times, just so it's tight. Okay, so you're ready to go now. So we're going to pick 3 or 4 pieces of holly, and we're almost making like a little bouquet in our hands. Okay? Obviously, when you first make them, don't worry too much about how many pieces you pick up. It wants to be a good handful, and then behind that we're going to sit the conifer. So if you can see, that's like almost like a little bouquet. That is then going to be wrapped on. So we lie that at a slight angle, if you can see, just slightly sticking out. If you lie it flat, then your holly wreath is going to be very small. So you need to stick out slightly, okay? With the twigs, they're going to be hidden by the next handful of holly. And then we're wrapping over, pulling tight after each one. Your string might snap, then you just re-wrap it, don't worry. I usually wrap around 2 or 3 times. So that's the first handful. I always let the first handful stick out slightly further than the others, because when you come to the last one, this will help infill. You'll see what I mean anyway. So then we go again. Usually for a holly wreath this size, you're going to take 8 handfuls of holly. So this is one of these things that is not yet done by machines. And it's a tradition round here. So it's a real sort of cottage industry. Everybody gets involved on the nursery. If you're not making them, then you're either cutting the holly, or you're trimming the conifer, or you're wiring things like statice or cones that are going to go in and be decorated afterwards. So it's all hands on deck this time of year. So as you can see, another bouquet that lies, and then just fluff it to make sure there's no gaps. Make sure your conifer's protruding through nicely. Hold it tight. So you've got to grip the base and the twigs and wrap round again. Whoop, see, snapped. Don't worry, your string does snap. That's not an issue. Sometimes your bobbin goes funny as well, but that isn't an issue either. Find the string and we go again. Okay, so we just keep picking the holly up. If you're making 1 or 2 of these, it's not a problem. If you start to be making like 100 a day like we have to here, then it gets a little bit monotonous, so that's when you need banter. Okay, so you can see we're working around. We're nearly halfway round now. Again, it's snapped. That's not a good start. My cameraman's laughing now. Okay. Sometimes if the string is damp, like it is today, it will snap a bit more, but don't worry. It's always a time of year, it reminds me of, we used to make all the holly wreaths in like a wooden cabin. And we used to have, I remember as a kid coming home from school, cutting the holly, and the smell of the wreath cabin was something that stuck with you forever. It was the smell of the cut holly and the cut conifer. It really does bring Christmas to life. I used to have both, all my grandparents used to be involved. My grandma used to decorate the wreaths, and my granddad would be making them, and she would always reject my granddad's. That was a bit of a joke in the family. As you can see, we just keep working away, picking these pieces up. Don't ever put another piece down, just keep them in your hand. A couple of pieces of conifer, on we go. There's something very therapeutic about doing this job. In fact, you're creating something from nothing. But, like I say, it's usually about 8 handfuls, and then you start to get to match up with your other handfuls. So that's slightly tricky. I'll tell you about that in a minute. There we go. Sometimes if you've got loads of sticks sticking out, just trim that bouquet so it's nice and neat. Okay, so can you see now we're getting towards the end? We've got about enough room for 1 or 2 handfuls there. Just a bit of base showing. So what we're going to do is we lie it on and try and sort of get it to just to fill that whole gap, and then you've got to move your string in between your twigs. It's not simple. And then the one that I left hanging slightly over is what's overlapping. That will then push in. So as you can see now, that doesn't look right, but if you just push that in, fluff it up, that is done. So then when we're finished, we're going to pull it tight, tie the string off, so obviously we don't want it loose and everything falling out, and we leave that little bit of length of string, and you can use that then to tie and hang from either a wreath hanger or on your door. So we haven't finished yet because we've turned it over and it looks a little bit untidy on the back, so we're going to go around and take any long twigs out that might prick somebody or damage the door, anything like that. Nice soft base, and then we just trim the actual, because obviously it's not going to look like a true circle until you give it a bit of a trim. And there you have it. So there we go. That's the one we made earlier. That's the one I've just made now. Beautiful, tight, full holly wreaths. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to make a larger one mixed with some Picea glauca, which is blue spruce. That's lovely. Okay, so now we're going to make a larger door wreath. So those holly wreaths are usually used for either putting on graves, can put them on the door because we can decorate them with scented things like oranges and cinnamon sticks and all these things, which we're going to show you in a minute. But some people like a larger wreath, so that larger wreath is going to be made on this bigger base that I talked about before. This is double wired, then straw, then moss, and we're going to really fan this one out to make it look big. Okay, in order to get that sort of feeling of size, we're going to use, rather than the conifer, we're going to use something called Picea glauca, which is blue spruce. Now this is basically cut sustainably in Wales, all right, and this was brought up last night, so it's fresh as a daisy. We've just cut it into decent pieces, and basically it's just trimmed from the lower branches in the forest. This is going to act as the backdrop, so it's a lovely blue against the green. Okay, so yet again we put the bobbin on. So like we said before, we're going to lie that 6 inch string over, pull it tight, and away we go. So we're going to pick up about, again, 4 or 5, if not sometimes 6 pieces of holly. Okay, and then we get the piece of spruce, and that's going to sit at the back. Quite a lot taller than the conifer, but it's going to give this wreath the feeling of size. Okay, and around we go again. Each time picking it up. The handfuls do tend to be a bit bigger on these because we're making a bigger, fatter wreath. And we manoeuvre it because I want that spruce to splay out behind the holly. We do make wreaths just solely out of this blue spruce. Again, it's a simple thing to do. Easier than the holly in the sense that you don't have to be really wearing gloves and you don't prick yourself. So it's a more forgiving thing to work with. And it does last a lot longer, where holly, obviously being a glossy leaf, does tend to, if you're bringing it inside or it's going somewhere dry, it's not going to last for ages. So we always say if you're buying a holly wreath, don't buy it really until sort of like the last week of November, early December, unless you're putting it on the graves or something. If you want it on your door and you want it to stay looking fresh, then mist it now and again, because it is a living thing. Now obviously the spruce is a living thing, but it retains its foliage a lot better and a lot easier. So that could be hung on your door now and would still look great in February. There we go. Now this is harder to do. If you've only got small hands, these big ones are tricky. I'm not going to lie to you, because you're really gripping a lot. And when you do it for the, like 5 or 6 weeks like we do here, you do start to feel it. And there we go again. So as you can see, we're starting to develop, and by fanning out and layering, so as you can see, I'm sitting it almost on top of the other piece, if you can see that. I'm not leaving a big gap like that because that's just going to look really bitty. This is going to look like a really full wreath. So we are sitting it on top. I love this job. It's nice to just get away from it all and focus on creating something. And when you see them hanging on the wall, hanging on people's doors in Pemberton, you get this great feeling of satisfaction. You've made it. So if you are locked down and you're looking for something to do, then give us a ring or go online, order the bits and pieces off us, and we'll deliver it, and you can make your own. Save us a job. There we go. Or if you don't want to do that, then order the finished article and keep us in work. One or the other. Let's have a look. So we're doing it. We are lucky that this is the sort of job that you can do socially distanced as well, so there might be 3 or 4 people on this bench, but we'll all be 2 metres apart, and that way we can keep busy and keep safe, which is vital. Oh, string's broken again, no problem. I have to find the end. Got the end again, and we go again. So instead of just trying to tie that bit, if you do get a break, just wrap it over, tighten it up, and away you go again. So, we're nearly done. Don't know how long this has taken. Yeah, not long. So, slotting that last piece in, making sure that my string doesn't grab hold of anything and pull it in too much, because you want it to all look fluffed out. Now then, sometimes you've got to think, do I need another handful in there? Because it can be the difference between a wreath looking fantastic and a wreath just not quite being up to standard. So yeah, we're going to slot another little handful. Sometimes the last handful doesn't need to be as big as all the others. Find a nice little piece of spruce, a couple of little twigs of holly, trim this one, and we're just going to squeeze. Can you see the gap there? Doesn't really look like it needs one, but if you squeeze that in now at an angle, okay, and tie full tight, and there we're done. Right, so that they can't fit any more holly onto that base now. I'm happy with that, right? But now we have to tidy it up. So first of all, we flip it over because we have to tie it off. You find the bit of string that you started with, that overlap that you left at the first place. Okay, and then you cut this off. I've got 2 pieces here because I had that break. And then we're just going to tie this off. Okay. And just leave enough for him still to be able to hang it with. Okay, so that's nicely tied off again. Now that doesn't look even to me. Look at that piece sticking right down there. So, but it's quite neat on the back. So what we do, trim anything off, like I say, that could, and then you turn it round, and that is not even. So this is where you've got to start to just trim the spruce back a bit, because the spruce will make it look untidy if you don't. Just nip some tips out here and there. Now it's starting to look like the real deal. There you go. So there we go, holly and spruce wreath. A lot bigger, great for putting on the door once it's decorated. Right, so we're going to pass you over to Jenny now. She does all our decorating, and she'll just talk you through some of the things that you can put in there and show you a few arrangements. Okay, enjoy.
Hi guys, this is where we decorate some of our wreaths, so I'm going to show you a few samples. This is what we call our standard wreath. Look for the top where the string is, and I put my first cone in. It's going to have 3 cones in it in total. Pierce it through and we punch it into the back. And 2 more cones, put them a bit further down. And then I do the same again on the opposite side. Some berries, 2 berries we put in this. Which are plastic berries. The cones are dried. These are plastic berries, because if you put real berries in, they do drop off. You may be lucky and have some berries in the holly already. But we just put these in. And then a piece of statice goes directly below the first top coat. There's no ribbon on this one, it's just standard wreath. And that's that one. Okay. Now moving on to our natural wreath, which I put 3 cones in, 2 berries, some statice, cinnamon sticks, and a nice bow. Same principle again. Look for the top where the string is and put your first cone in. Holly is very prickly, so you do need to wear suitable gloves for this. Three cones just like before. Find it. Opposite again. Two berries. It can be a bit difficult to get them through sometimes. Just take them to the side instead. Now I put 2 cinnamon sticks in this one. Just at the bottom. Bit of statice again. Lovely fresh dried statice it is. It's dried, sorry. The cinnamon sticks are dried as well, so they do smell. They have a nice fragrant smell on them. Cinnamon. And on this one I've done a double bow. Now you can have a double bow or a single bow. But I'm going to put a double bow on this because I think it looks nice. And you can position it and just put it as tight as you like. Tie it. And that's a natural wreath with a double bow. Now I'm going to make the large holly and spruce. This is one of the largest wreaths we do. I'm going to make it with scented oranges in, which have been dried, but they do smell very nice still. I'm going to use a lotus head at the top for this, quite like them. And again, look for where the string is at the top and place the lotus head at the top. I'll do the cones next. Just 2 cones again. You can put more cones in if you want it a bit more fuller. Found it. Push it in again around the back. This time I'm going to put 4 cinnamon sticks in. Top. And below the cones. And now I'm going to put the scented oranges in. I'm going to put 4 of them in. The beauty of them being on wire is you can position them and move them around a bit. It's a bit harder to get through on these ones because of the blue spruce. To the bottom. You can play around with it a bit once they're on. Position them where you like. Put a bit of status in. Oh, it's not going in. And then I've done a Hessian bow. I mean, this is a single bow, but you can request a double bow. I'm just going to tie that in. And this is our large holly and spruce, and it's scented wreath. Now in the scented wreath, you can have all lotus heads, you can have all cones, or you can have, instead of just orange, the orangey, dried oranges, you can have green oranges. You can have it made up just like the standard, the natural wreath. You can have that made in a large holly and spruce with a nice hessian bow. Right, these are spruce wreaths, but we can put anything you see in these spruce wreaths in a holly wreath, or even in the large holly and spruce. As before, I was mentioning the green oranges, they do look nice, and you can have a white snowflake ribbed hessian bow on them. You can have them on the holly as well. We also do like a tartan sample, that's a large one, but we can have this sort of on holly as well, which we use, you know, more plastic, like a plastic pick, and some nice green. We have some nice white wooden twigs as well, which are nice. And we also have a nice berry bow as well. Nice smooth. They are our 3 bows. Like that is a pull bow in the tartan.
Okay guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found it informative. So just remember, you can order all the things you've seen online on newgatedirect.co.uk. Otherwise, come into the nursery and we'll sort you out, or you can buy the thing hanging up. Another thing just to note is, if you do buy a Christmas tree off us, you get your wreaths with 20% discount on them. Okay. Christmas trees are in from next weekend, so week commencing the 16th, which is next week. At the end of that week, we'll be able to view them. If you do want a Christmas tree and you do want to take advantage of the early order discount, where you get 10% off and free delivery, you've got to order by the end of November. Okay, you can do that by either phoning the nursery on 01772 612 336, or go onto Newgate Direct and fill in a form and we'll give you a call. Alright, otherwise pop in and see us whenever you can. Merry Christmas.